Welcome back to another deep dive. We are so glad you could join us today because we're getting into something pretty fascinating.
Yeah, we really are. It's something you use every single day, but probably never actually think about.
Exactly. We're looking at a transcript from the Speak Up Sessions English podcast.
Right, hosted by Isha and Ryan.
Yeah, and the title of their show was versus were versus been. And, they're tackling what is basically the most notoriously confusing area of English grammar.
Oh, without a doubt, the past forms of the verb to be. It's a minefield for learners.
It really is. And our mission today for this deep dive is to, unpack how they attempt to demystify these mechanics.
Because they have a very specific pedagogical approach, right? They prioritize natural conversation over rote memorization.
Right, which is huge.
Yeah.
And even if, the person listening right now, even if you've spoken English your entire life, this is just a fascinating look into the architecture of how we communicate time.
It really is, because we're constantly signaling to each other whether something is completely finished or whether it's still sort of echoes into the present.
Yeah, exactly. It's the hidden machinery of everyday communication.
So looking at the transcript, Aisha and Ryan start by setting a very specific tone right out of the gate.
They do. They want to make grammar feel, what do we call it, easy and natural.
Right. Ryan literally says, and I'm quoting here, "No boring rules. Just real-life English you can actually use."
Okay, I have to stop right there and just challenge this premise for a second.
Go for it.
Because they say no boring rules,
Mm-hmm.
right? But aren't rules exactly what they're about to teach?
Well, yeah. I mean, they spend the next 20 minutes explaining the rules.
Right, so they aren't abandoning the rules at all.
No, they're abandoning the traditional presentation of those rules.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, think about how grammar is usually taught. You're sitting in a classroom, and you're just staring at a conjugation table on a whiteboard.
Oh, the dreaded grid. I am, you are, he is.
Exactly. I was, you were, they were. And by explicitly contrasting boring rules with real-life English, they're acknowledging how overwhelming that grid is for a language learner.
Because you can't use a grid in real life.
No, you can't. The cognitive load is just too high. You can't mentally scroll through a spreadsheet while someone is waiting for you to answer a question at a coffee shop.
It's like learning to ride a bike, right?
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Because you can read a physics textbook on balance, and those are the rules, right? The actual physics.
Right, the mechanics of it.
But you don't really learn how to ride by getting on the seat and pedaling.
Exactly. You have to feel the rhythm of it. And that's what the podcast medium does for them. It's contextual learning.
They're embedding the mechanics directly into relatable dialogue.
Right. So the brain absorbs the acoustic pattern, the sound of the language, before it has to worry about the abstract rule.
So it's a pedal-first approach.
A pedal-first approach, exactly. And we see how that plays out immediately when they introduce the simple past.
Right, the famous was and were.
The closed box of the past.
I love that framing. So, looking at the source, Aisha gives the basic mapping first, just to get us grounded.
Yeah, she says you use was with I, he, she, and it, and you use were with you, we, and they.
But they don't linger on that map. They jump straight into a role play.
Right. Ryan asks Aisha where she was yesterday.
And Ryan says he was at a cafe, which he notes was quiet and nice,
Uh-huh.
while Aisha was at home. She says she was really tired, so she just relaxed.
It's such a mundane conversation on the surface, right?
Totally. It's small talk.
But there is a key phrase from the source's final tips that we need to highlight here. They call these finished past situations.
Finished past situations. Okay, unpack that for me.
Well, look at the vocabulary they're using. The very first word is yesterday.
Right. Yesterday.
That word acts as an anchor. It creates this definitive, unbreachable boundary in time.
Ah, okay, so think of was and were as a photograph.
A photograph.
Right, like if you're holding a snapshot of a moment, that moment is totally over.
Completely resolved.
The box is closed, taped shut, and put on a shelf. The cafe visit, Aisha being tired, those are completed events.
And exactly, they have absolutely no bearing on the present moment. And that's a huge comfort for a language learner.
Because there's no ambiguity.
Right. When your brain hears was or were in this context, it instantly categorizes that data as finished.
Right, okay. But what happens when the box isn't closed?
And that is the wall that most learners hit at top speed.
Because life isn't a series of neatly sealed boxes. Events spill over.
They absolutely do. What happens when a past event leaks into the present moment? You can't use a photograph to describe that.
Right, you need a different tool entirely. And this brings us to the third word in their title.
Been.
Right. The bridge across time.
And Ryan introduces Ben with a really important caveat. He notes that it rarely travels alone.
It needs a helper, right?
Yeah, it's usually paired with have or has.
Okay, and Aisha gives some examples in the transcript. She says, I have been to that restaurant.
Right.
And she has been very busy.
And then Ryan drops a core definition. He says that been connects the past to the present.
Connects the past to the present. Okay, so in their second role play, they demonstrate this by talking about travel.
Yeah. Ryan asks if Aisha has been to Cox's Bazaar.
And Aisha says, yes, I have been there twice. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and Ryan says he hasn't been there yet, but he really wants to go.
Okay, but hang on a second. I'm looking at this, and I feel like their own bridge metaphor kind of breaks down here.
How so?
Because, okay, if Ben connects the past to the present, how does her trip to Cox's Bazaar fit that?
Right?
I mean, she went there twice. The trips are over. She flew home. She's not currently standing in Cox's Bazaar.
No, she isn't.
So why isn't that a closed box? Why isn't it a photograph?
That right there is the exact point of friction for non-native speakers. You're looking at the action of the travel.
Which is finished.
Yes, the action is finished.
Right.
But Aisha is using the grammar to describe the experience of the travel.
Ah, the experience.
Right. As Aisha notes in the transcript, Ben helps us talk about experiences. The trips happened in the past, but the experience of having gone there
Is something she possesses right now.
exactly. It's a possession she holds in the present room with her.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what does this all mean for you listening to this?
Yeah.
If was and were is a photograph, then been is a bridge.
Bridge, yes.
You are standing in the present, but the bridge connects directly back to an accumulated experience.
Or an ongoing state. Look at the contrast between two different sentences in the source.
Okay.
In the first section, Aisha says, I was tired yesterday.
The photograph.
Right. But later on, they use the example, I have been tired all day.
Oh, that's completely different.
Massively different. I have been tired implies the tiredness started in the past, maybe when you woke up.
Right, and it's still actively happening right now. You are actively tired.
Yes. The fatigue traveled across the bridge of the day and is still sitting on your shoulders.
So the grammar tells you whether the fire was put out yesterday or if the room is actively filling with smoke right now.
Exactly.
Right.
And the true test of fluency isn't just knowing the difference. It's navigating between the two seamlessly.
Which is incredibly hard.
It's the ultimate cognitive stress test. And the podcast provides a capstone example to show exactly what this looks like in real life.
Right. Their final, more complex conversation. And this is where they really synthesize everything.
Yes. Aisha notices that Ryan looks tired, and she asks him, have you been busy?
She uses the bridge.
She uses the bridge because she sees the physical fatigue in the present moment, and she's checking if an ongoing state of busyness caused it.
And Ryan confirms it. He says, I have been very busy this week.
He validates the bridge. The week isn't over. The busyness is ongoing.
But then, and this is wild, in the very next sentence, he says, yesterday, I was at work until late.
The pivot. Look at that pivot.
He instantly switches back to the closed box.
He drops the bridge and hands her a photograph.
Because yesterday is finished.
Yes. And Aisha seamlessly follows his lead. She has to adjust instantly.
Right. She asks, were your coworkers busy too?
She jumps right into the finished past with him.
And he says, yes, they were. Everyone was working hard.
It is densely packed with shifting time frames.
But I have to ask, if we are jumping back and forth like this, from the bridge to the photograph and back again in a span of literally 10 seconds,
Yeah.
how on earth does a learner keep up with that?
They don't. Not if they're relying on a conjugation grid.
Right.
By the time your brain calculates that yesterday means finished past and coworkers means plural, so I need to use were.
The conversation has already moved on.
Exactly. Which points right back to Aisha and Ryan's core philosophy from the beginning.
No boring rules.
Right. Aisha says at the end, native speakers use these words naturally and smoothly.
And Ryan gives that final tip. Practice speaking. Don't just memorize.
Because fluid conversation requires an intuitive feel for time.
Yep.
It's not a mental calculation.
You have to feel it.
You have to expose your ear to the rhythm so much that it just feels right when you're talking about your week.
And was automatically triggers when you think about yesterday.
Exactly. The synthesis proves that it's about procedural memory, not declarative memory.
Right, right. So to distill all of this down for you, the listener, what this Speak Up Sessions transcript really teaches us is that was and were lock an action away in the finished past.
They tape the box shut.
Yes. while been, when paired with have or has, pulls a past experience or an ongoing situation right into the present moment with you.
It keeps it alive.
And most importantly, the best way to master this is by getting on the bike and pedaling.
By speaking.
By speaking, not by staring at a textbook.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up, this whole discussion actually brings up a really provocative thought. Something for you to kind of mull over on your own.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Because the way a language constructs its grammar tells us a lot about how its speakers actually view the world.
Oh, definitely.
So if we rely so heavily on a single grammatical structure, like the word been, to keep our past experiences alive in the present.
To constantly build that bridge.
Right. How much does the grammar we use every single day secretly shape our perception of time itself?
That is a fascinating question. Does the language force us to hold on to the past?
Exactly. Does it prevent us from letting things go? It's just, something to think about the next time you tell someone where you were yesterday or where you have been in your life.
I love that.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time.